Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/AskReddit. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Serious, what is the scariest theory you know about? Attention! Serious, tag notice. Jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit if you have any questions or concerns. As Arctic permafrost melts, it will release diseases that have been frozen in the ground for thousands or tens of thousands of years, and life on Earth will have no immunity to them. Wonder how the world will react if a disease suddenly infected the whole world. We're good at following orders and social distancing, so it won't spread that fast, right? The greenhouse gas emissions from that are scary. The chance for some ancient super disease is abysmal. If there is some, it has basically missed out on thousands of years of evolution and adaptation. That theory about what happened on the missing Malaysian flight. From looking at the evidence and the most likely scenario, that being the pilot committing suicide, people have been able to piece together possible scenarios that happened on the plane. One of which is that shortly into the flight, the pilot deoxygenated the plane and accelerated to a high altitude, killing all on board very quickly. He then flew for hours and hours south before crashing the plane. It's scary to me because he would have been flying in an isolated part of the Earth, with nothing ahead of him other than the South Pole. That isolated plane, flying in the dark, with hundreds of dead strapped in their seats. The nearest city, Perth, is still asleep and only beginning to wake up. There is no one and nothing. To think of that man, flying with all those bodies in the dark to nowhere is very scary. So selfish and cowardly, but also very scary. There was a very interesting article in The Atlantic about it. It is speculated that there are over 2,000 active serial killers in the US alone. It makes you realize that many of the serial killers we know of today, Bundy, BTK, Gacy, are ultimately failed serial killers. It's like that usual suspects line: the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he did not exist. We don't know whether the universe is in a true vacuum, lowest possible energy state, or a false vacuum, a local low, but not the lowest. If the universe is a false vacuum, at any point, at any moment, a quantum tunneling event could occur where that point spontaneously decays to a true vacuum. If that happened, a bubble would expand from that point at the speed of light that radically altered physics, instantly annihilating everything down to the subatomic level. Since it travels at sea, there'd be no warning, no way to see it coming. When it reached us, you just instantly blink out of existence. Even if we are in a false vacuum, such an event doesn't become likely for at least 10,139 years, but it could happen at any moment at any point. It could have already happened and the bubble could be heading straight for us, about to end us at any TI. That, after decapitation, you may still be conscious and somewhat aware for at least a few seconds. The French did some studies on this during the Revolution. They had a surplus of recently separated heads. One guy grabbed a head, fresh from the guillotine, and called his name. The eyes opened and focused on him. Another scientist hooked the main arteries up to fresh blood and reported that the head blushed. Forgive me for piss poor job I'm about to do describing it since I forget the name of it, but I recently read here on Reddit that as humans have a defense mechanism where we can see something that is non-human, but mimicking a human such as a realistic wax figure and know that something is off. The theory was that in our evolution there was a predator that could mimic being human that we had to adapt and develop this defense mechanism for. The rebuttal to this theory was that it comes from us seeing dead bodies, through sickness or disease, and not blatant, Neanderthal murder or death from an animal, through our evolution and learning that something is wrong / out of the ordinary and a cause for concern. Ah, fuck me mate, this one got me. A predator that mimics humans has me fucking cunt. Chills man. The butterfly effect kind of freaks me out because it suggests that every little action could be part of a series of events that leads to something much more impactful. For example, I could drop a pencil, which distracts someone for a few seconds, causing them to miss the bus, and after a few billion seemingly insignificant events World War III begins. Equally likely that you dropping the pencil prevents World War III. The two possibilities cancel each other out, so you don't have to worry about it. That AI, self-replicating and immortal, has a better chance of colonizing this galaxy than biological life does. Think about it. It took hundreds of millions of years for life to get to this point. From a ball of proteins to multicellular creatures to plants and animals, took an incredible amount of time. Back in the late 1970s, I was playing with computers that had 4K of RAM. 40 years later we have incredible computing power in the palms of our hands, hundreds of gigs, and terabyte micro SD cards. Robotic manufacturing of everything from circuit boards to vehicles is the norm. Where will this tech be in a couple hundred years? Will AI be able to design and launch spacecraft that are capable of self-maintenance for the hundreds, maybe thousands, of years it would take to reach the nearest exoplanets? Once they arrive, will they be capable of self-replication? Machines don't need food and water. Machines aren't susceptible to disease or mental health issues. Machines don't seek power or authority and don't victimize each other for amusement. What if the purpose of human life in the universe is to facilitate the creation of AI and launch its spread into the wild? This could backfire. Read the Berserker series by Fred Saberhagen for more. I saw one about the potential of a specific type of supernova that would essentially fire out beam of radiation, or some other kind of energy. If it hit Earth we would see the entire sky covered with auroras. This is the ozone layer burning off and the last thing we would see before we all die. Guess at least we get a pretty light show to end on. Gamma-ray bursts, they are produced when a supernova becomes a black hole, or two neutron stars merge, so they are extremely common. The possibility that I am just a brain in a jar and my entire life is just something my brain fabricated to keep itself entertained. Everything and everyone I have ever known is a figment of imagination. Every method I can conceive to prove this idea wrong is also just part of the dream logic my brain has created to make sense of the illusion that is my existence. Might not even be a brain at all. The true reality might be completely different with completely different physics, laws, and rules. Ours are the only ones that make sense to us because they're the only world we've lived in. You could be a pile of goop connected to a grid. So I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but I learned this in a class I took last semester. There's a theory that says that there is a point that no intelligent life can get past, no matter what they do. Diving deeper into this, some people claim this is why we haven't found any other intelligent life forms. I think the truly scary part about it is that we won't know we are at that point until we are living it. It's called the Great Filter. You can think about it two ways basically. We have already passed the filter, and therefore we may really be all alone in the universe. Or, we have yet to hit it, and there's this looming thing that will keep us from advancing. I tend to believe we have yet to pass the filter. That the Big Bang is just a never-ending cycle. Each time the universe explodes into existence, it will inevitably end, then the Big Bang restarts. Each iteration of existence is just a rerun of the Big Bang. The theory is likely called Big Bounce. Don't forget the Big Crunch, which definitely ties into that. Basically, we know that the Big Bang exploded and all matter in the universe is still flying outward from the Big Bang. The Big Crunch is the theory that everything will eventually slow down, and then stop and slowly be pulled back to the spot that the Big Bang happened, probably to start it all over again. Epstein's Island has a dump site for the victims. That would be unnecessary. They could just dump them at sea, especially if they had a small amount of knowledge about current flow in the area. I think this is the worst one in the whole thread. The hypothesis that human life was seeded by another civilization. What if they come back? They'd be mighty fucking disappointed. What if they seeded our planet because they themselves were doomed and wanted to give life a fighting chance to endure? There's nothing after we die. All of our memories, experiences, thoughts, feelings, etc. just immediately blinked out of existence. And this seems like the most likely and realistic possibility to me. It will be just like before you were born. There's nothing to be afraid of. It didn't hurt, it wasn't scary. This theory gives me so much comfort. It'd be literally impossible to feel scared, regretful, guilty, or any other negative emotion the second you died. Any regrets you happen to have on your deathbed are immediately cease to exist. Fractalization theories. Everything that exists is a tiny part of a bigger thing. In a brief summary, our galaxy is a part of space, but is space a small part of something larger? Think of a smaller object containing its own galaxy. A speck of a rock may contain its own microscopic cosmos that we cannot see. It may be composed of its own organisms smaller than a single electron, and that civilization is more advanced than we are. We know all matter contains their own gravitational force, but we don't exactly know why. I've always believed this, but I never knew it had a name. This isn't exactly scary though. As above so below. Solar systems resemble atoms. Humans have trillions of microscopic creatures living on them. If you zoom in or zoom out, everything's the same, and I find that so beautiful. My anxiety is out of control right now. This was a bad idea. What bothers me is they can't be attributed to irrational fears because each one is just rational enough to be frightening. The uncanny valley. You know, the sense of unease and discomfort you feel when you look at a near-realistic animation of a human face, like imperfect deepfakes or flawed CGI faces in movies. It implies that there might have been a point in our species' evolution where we had legit reasons to be afraid of something that looked almost human, but wasn't. I remember I told my 13-year-old cousin this, and his response was we came out on top. We made nature our bitch, and that completely put my mind at ease. I'd imagine it's because of death. If you came across a dead person, you need to be able to tell they're dead and not just sleeping. Something seems not quite right with corpses, even though they look identical to a living human. That or there was a predator that could mimic humans, which is now thankfully extinct. That the Carrington event is actually on a 150 to 200 year repeating cycle. Goodbye electricity. What's the Carrington event? And anything electronic. Not so scary, but some people say we are all dead now, but our consciousness keeps repeating memories of our lives like an endless loop, and it's the reason we experience déjà vu sometimes. But how can I remember my entire lifespan if I can't remember what I ate yesterday? The fact that if aliens do exist, they are either billions of years ahead of us, or we are billions of years ahead of them. It would be virtually impossible for them to become sentient around the same time as us, especially if you consider how old the universe actually is. Actually, if you start looking at the requirements for formation of planets hospitable to life as we know it, we're incredibly early. Sure, we could have been there some hundreds of millions of years before, but multiple billions of years is really pushing it, as you need multiple generations of stars to end up with planets like ours. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.